for us because we are both in the same room this time.
Yes, we are. Johnny's driven all the way up from his cairn to come up to mine.
And here I am.
Quite a remarkable thing indeed. Does that make you... No, well, what's weird is that I'm the wandering rover, yet you're the one that drove all the way up to come here.
Yeah, I'm the one who brought myself all the way over here.
That is correct. Today, on this very special edition of the Galliard's Guide to Werewolf, we are going to be talking about the Shadow Lords. Good old Shadow Lords.
And it's very strange because for a while I thought about just not doing this episode at all. This has been and always has been my least favorite out of all the tribes. And I wanted this to just be a 5-minute episode at first, just saying don't put the Shadow Lords in your game. Just don't do it, but I don't think that's fair.
And then he wound up and put a Shadow Lord in our Werewolf game, which you can watch, which is up on our channel on Galliard Group, by the way.
Shadow Lords plural because the New York administration, that's all Shadow Lords. And I've gone through this several times. I've been muddling over this for 2 months because I knew at some point I wanted to do an episode on the Shadow Lords eventually because this is the tribe that I have the most to say about. And I've been looking through the development for this game. I've been looking at the writing credits for all these books, and I've noticed something about the writing staff between first and second edition. I have first edition in my hand right now, and I can't really like wave it around and flat the paper into the microphone because this is a digital copy I have in my hand.
Here, let me grab this and just...
And this is very curious because the guy who wrote the first edition book is Brian Campbell. But then you look at second edition, and I believe that Brian Campbell is also the writer for that book too.
Is he?
Yeah. And there is such a weird difference between the two books because Shadow Lord first edition and Shadow Lord second edition paint two very different images as to what the Shadow Lords are supposed to be as a tribe. I think I've brought this up before, that I've had the working theory that the Shadow Lords were supposed to fall to the worm at some point in the series. That as just outwardly evil and untrustworthy these guys can be, that I really just feel like that you just have no reason to ever trust these guys as a tribe.
It's like, I did a lot of the reading, I did some of the reading, and the reading that I found, a lot of it wasn't really about the battle between Mother Gaia and the worm. A lot of it, especially when it came to their relationships between other tribes, was about the relationship, or how they manipulate the other tribes into doing what they want. While they are populists, and they do bring some changes that the Silverfangs just can't, at the end of the day, they're still just looking out for their own back. They're not worried as much about the Battle of the Worm as they are about gaining power within the Garo Nation.
Along with all the different disasters that these guys have been the direct cause of. Dracula's rise to power, the formation of the Ventru in Rome, the murder of the Camazotz, the entirety of everything that went on in Russia in the 1940s. The Shadow Lords have been a direct part of. And there was a direct quote in the second edition saying, "It's your fault for believing us because we're honest about our dishonesty. You have no reason to keep these guys in the Garo Nation. These guys have told you straight up that these are traitors, and you have absolutely no reason to not put these guys into exile or kill them. Why would you ever cooperate with the Shadow Lords?" And in Times of Judgment Gehenna, Times of Judgment Apocalypse, I'm sorry, they don't even change their name when they fall. And Grandfather Thunder just makes a conscious decision, okay, well, if I can't have my way with Gaia, I'm just going to quit fighting for Gaia entirely and side with the worm. And that was the plan. And I swear up, down, left, and right that the Shadow Lords were supposed to be an evil tribe. So I have it in my hands right here. I gotta correct myself on the writer's staff. So Brian Campbell was the guy who wrote the first book. And then for second edition, they brought on Chris Campbell for this, his brother. And Chris Campbell, looking at his history, was pretty green when it came to writing for World of Darkness. I think he only wrote 1 or 2 other books prior to writing the Shadow Lords pretty much by himself. And you had a few people from the first book help him, because you had Ethan Skimp and Eileen E. Miles, who are both veterans, who helped out with this. But it's very clear to me that Chris Campbell and Brian Campbell were not on the same page at all. And along with that, there was a lot of lore that was stuffed into the Shadow Lord's second edition book that was very, very sloppy. The entirety of South America, the entirety of Dracula, that all feels like it was put in first draft, and I hate it. I think it's poorly written. It's horrible historical fiction. And when World of Darkness does something bad, I'm thinking World of Darkness Gypsies, I'm thinking Wraith the Oblivion, the Showa, I'm thinking Tradition Book Akashic Brotherhood, I'm thinking Kindred of the East. These are the 5 books that you should never read when it comes to World of Darkness. Shadow Lord 2nd Edition is a book that you should never touch. I mean it when I say this is the worst book in Werewolf the Apocalypse. But majority of our information we're bringing, it's going to come from the 1st edition book.
Yep.
And if it's in the 2nd edition book, we're going to take it upon our own arrogant selves to try to modify what's in here to make it, not terrible. And me and Kyle have gone back and forth on this several times, and we've talked about this, and we wanted to make sure that this wasn't stupid before we put it in here.
Yes. Like, we always regarded them in pretty much every other episode as the consummate fuck-ups of the Garrow, and now we want to try and amend it to the best of our ability. And we'll get into that later as we get into history, which we'll start off with.
Yeah, history. So way back when, we have our cover art for 2nd edition Shadow Lords up here. We do like this picture.
They did good art, but they didn't do good writing.
It's got some serious Mortal Kombat energy when you look at it. You can see this guy being in an MK game, right?
I'd play. I'd main him, hell.
So, way back when, before any tribe really formed, you had the Silver Fangs and the Red Talons as the first 2 tribes. And the Red Talons had no respect for the Silver Fangs, and the Shadow Lords got an idea. They automatically knew way before anything happened in the Modern Knights that the Shadow Lords were and always were going to be a complete joke. There was no reason to take anything the Shadow Lords the Silver Fangs told you seriously. So what they wanted was leadership. They wanted to seize control over the entire Garrow Nation and make it a nation where they were the leaders. But they lost it. The Silver Fangs already established their dominance. The werewolf consensus at the time was the Silver Fangs are going to be our leaders. And the Shadow Lords just were shit out of luck in that regard. But they decided, we'll wait for leadership to mess up and then we'll take control. So they start looking around the Umbra, they start looking for a totem, and they pick Crow. They look over at Crow, and Crow's a pretty nasty totem all said and done. This guy might as well just be the demigod of war crimes. Because considering what the Children of Crow do, and what Crow's spirits do, this guy's pretty nasty. This guy is an assassin. Crow loves seeing people die. He is very close to being a wormish totem. He's very evil in terms the way you read him and the way he's described. So you start following Crow, and of course the 2 massive fuck-ups happen. The Impergium and the War of Rage.
Yes.
The Impergium happens, and the Shadow Lords go along with it at first, but they have a plan. They'll say, all you other stupid tribes, you can kill all the humans. We're going to take the sexiest women and the most handsome men, and we're going to wrangle them and put them in farms. And we'll create little breeding farms with them. So when you kill all the humans, we'll have humans for ourselves, and we can breed with the humans. You'll find out very quickly that all you have are wolves and each other to breed with, and eventually you'll peter out. Meanwhile, us and the humans will be around forever. And of course that plan didn't take off because the Impergium was ended by the Children of Gaia and the Fianna. So War of Rage comes around, and War of Rage, they let that play its course. Sure, they kill some members of the changing breeds, but they know that this is going to be a bad idea ultimately. That it's forces of Gaia killing forces of Gaia on order of the Silver Fangs. They're waiting for everyone to realize that the Silver Fangs are the cause of this genocide. And eventually they do. And the Silver Fangs put it up to vote as to who is going to be the next leader. And nobody chooses the Shadow Lords. Everyone picks the Silver Fangs. Everybody wants to say the Silver Fangs haven't struck out a third time. They can still be good leaders. And the Shadow Lords never get over this.
You never forgive them. Ever.
They never forgive them. That leadership position needs to be theirs, and they will never let that go. And you're going to see that throughout the entire history. So the Imperium ends, and you have the Concord where everyone is deciding what role we're going to be, and the Shadow Lords are fuming. They're livid. They're looking at Crow, and they're saying to Crow, why didn't this work? Why didn't you work for us? Why are we still the Beta Wolves, and the Silver Fangs are still the leaders? And, almost like a miracle, a voice answers. A giant hand rips itself out of the Umbra, grabs Crow, throws him off the leadership chair, metaphorically, and then he crawls his way out and sits down on the throne. And he says, I am Grandfather Thunder. You may have heard of Fenris, that really, really strong wolf that leads to get a Fenris. I'm the strongest Shadow Lord that there ever was, and the strongest that there ever will be. And I have formed myself as a totem spirit off of your ambitions for leadership. And I will be the one leading the pack from here on out. And every Shadow Lord is A-okay with it. If they're going to have a leader, it needs to be somebody who knows everything that they're going to do. And Grandfather Thunder, we like to call him the great fascist in the sky.
Yes, he is.
Everything about the Shadow Lords, it is out and out dictatorship. It's fascism. It's nationalism. It is neoconservatism. I fucked that word up. Neoconservatism. These guys want power. And that's because of Grandfather Thunder that they want that power. Everything needs to have Shadow Lord involvement. And if there's going to be a leader in anything, a Shadow Lord will never be satisfied until they are the leader. Namely because of the culture that Grandfather Thunder has created.
I mean, like, forget the get of Fenris. Like, the Shadow Lords are the real fascists here.
I mean, everybody wants to point fingers at the get of Fenris and say that's the Nazi tribe. Bullshit. Fucking shit.
It's just because they live up north and they can't get that, fucking blonde-haired werewolf idea out of their heads. No, the Shadow Lords are the real fascists.
Something Ukrainian soldiers flying Nazi flags in current day.
Yeah, whatever. Rah, send money. Support the troops.
Yeah, you can see where we stand on that. I said that when you were taking a drink.
It's like, remembers that habitual line crosser video? It's like, hey, Ray. And he talks to Raytheon. He's like, I need some new tow missiles. By new, do you mean new paint job and flame patterns on it? Or do you want me to make it do some crazy shit? Yes. Okay, we'll have it done in 2 weeks. I'll bill you.
You have the Shadow Lords fuming about this for years, and you start thinking about how are we going to get some power? How are we going to get power? And they say we need to lean less on other wolves and more on humans. We need to look at what humans are doing. So they're not in the Middle East. They don't get to see what the glassworkers are creaming their pants about with Babylon and Israel and Egypt. They instead discover Sparta and Athens. Now, when you think of Sparta and Athens, which vampire clan do you think controls what?
I would imagine that Toreador controls Athens and that Tsumichi would control... Well, no, Tsumichi's too far north for that, wouldn't they be?
So what was really weird about this is that it seems like it's flipped on purpose because the Bruja controlled Athens and the Ventru controlled Sparta.
Well, Athens was like the first functioning democracy in the world, so that makes sense for the Bruja.
And with a clan as explicitly political as the Bruja, it makes sense that they form one of the world's first democracies.
In Sparta?
In Sparta, it was the Ventru.
Okay, that makes sense.
Which is kind of surprising to me because the Ventru are defensive, not offensive. Because you look at Fortitude. Fortitude is one of their treasured, like, it's part of the Ventru identity to have Fortitude.
When you think about it from a historical standpoint, when when the Spartans were almost cut off by the Persian Empire at the go past the Battle of Thermopylae, it's like they stood their ground for that amount of time. They were the strongest warriors at the time against an army of thousands.
Yeah. So
the best defense is a good offense in that case. Fortitude doesn't have to be a defensive discipline.
Considering that the Ventru anti-tribu are explicitly stated to be a warrior caste and will throw themselves and get into fights where they won't spec so much into dominate, they'll spend spend more points into fortitude. You're looking for a place to put that glass.
I had to move my drive.
Shadow Lords are looking between the two, and eventually the Bruja of Athens defeat the Ventru of Sparta. And the Shadow Lords immediately run over to the Bruja and say, hey, we see you're forming something here, and we like it. Can we get a piece of it? And I don't know if they ever reveal that they're werewolves, but they start talking with the Bruja, and they start talking to two people in particular, Socrates and Plato, which is not the best people to talk to if you want to form a nurturing society, considering that Plato wrote the Republic, and the Republic can be summed up as, I think all politicians should lose their jobs, and me and my friends should be the ones who rule the world.
That is all philosophers.
I love Plato, who just did nothing but shitpost his entire philosophical career, and everybody wants to trip over themselves over Plato. I can't stand Plato. You should have talked to Aristotle.
Well, the thing is that correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Aristotle think that writing was a detriment to society because it made people forget things more easily?
It was like that. It's like same thing with like having a smartphone. If I have information on a smartphone that I know I can look up, I'm not going to remember it as well. Something I know I can only get the one and done time.
That's true. Like I mean, when I was younger, I used to remember phone numbers like no problem, but now I can't even remember my dad's phone number.
Mm-hmm. And when the Bruja eventually became so politicized and so wacky that they became intolerable to be around, the Shadow Lords eventually left them, and it became wide open for Rome to just mow their way in and steal everything from Athens and just steal their culture. And when the Shadow Lords looked to see who did that, they saw the Ventru, and they thought, what the fuck, we thought you were the losers. And the Ventru said, no, we're reclaiming our birthright. We're the ones who should be ruling the world. And it's the Bruja who need to be dethroned. And the Shadow Lords look at that, and they feel their hearts stop for a second. They say, come here. We're friends. We're friends. Me and you, Ventru, we're going to be best friends forever. We understand each other. Let's do everything together.
You smell the Kahlua on my breath?
Yeah, exactly. And the Shadow Lords are just given positions within Rome. Typically, they're generals in that position, where I know Rage Across the Internet will say, because they told me this in their server, that werewolves never work with vampires. Bull fucking shit. The Shadow Lords openly colluded with the Ventru.
They bring up both the Camarilla and Sabbat by name in the clan book.
And through history, they bring up several times that they tried, first edition at least, that they brought up several times that they tried working with the Ventru and later the Assamites. We'll get to the Assamites in a minute. Mm-hmm. So they start working with the Ventru, and then they look over their shoulder and see the glassworkers and say, what the fuck are you guys doing here? And the glassworkers say, shh, can you keep this on the down low? We're trying to infiltrate Rome. And the Shadow Lords say, well, fine, just stay out of our way. And they have a great thing for a long time until the Surfangs say it's time to mow down Rome. These guys just caused the White Howlers to fall. And the Shadow Lords say, fuck. Well, I guess the fun's over, guys. You guys get off here very quickly. We'll tell Emperor Nero to set the city on fire. All of you run, take your Toreador and Malkavian friends with you. We're going to come in with the Getaphemiris and raid the place. So they have this raid, and the Getaphemiris have a great time. And the Getaphemiris say, hey, you guys pick some pretty good targets. Let's kill some people again sometime. And the Shadow Lords say, sounds great. Could you please stand over there while we quickly find our friends? So they scramble over to Constantinople, sorry.
Gotta stop drinking the White Russians.
And the Byzantine Empire. And they start talking with them all over again and have a great time. And while this is going on, the Shadow Lords start thinking, well, what if this falls through? We're going to need a plan B if we're going to have everything happen all over again. So, something that's brought up, they have territory in Mongolia, but it's not a lot. And it feels like a genuine criticism I do see about World of Darkness is that their tellings of Asia are pretty skin deep. They went hard when they did
Europe and the Middle East, but they didn't do a whole lot. You didn't do a whole lot when you got to China. You have the Stargazers, you have the Kuei Jin, You have what's the Glasswalker Sept in China?
The Glassworker Sept in China, that is the Bali
The
Zhohije.
Bali Zhihije, but not a whole lot past that.
And there's not that much depth when it comes to Asia. Granted, they weren't trying to be deep. They were trying to make kung fu movies, because that's what Kindred of the East was supposed to be. And it just comes off as goofy instead. Thankfully, Killing Streets exist, where that's when they fully embrace the campiness. But if you're looking for vampires as they're treated in China, you're going to be disappointed with Kindred of the East. But more about the equation in a different episode.
But given how restrictive the modern Chinese government is, I can and how much they've cracked down on the triad, it makes sense that you're not going to get a whole lot of headway as a vampire living in China.
Exactly. You had a story that takes place in Mongolia around this time, and we are going to talk about Genghis Khan. This is a bit of our own little story, but I've looked through World of Darkness, and I haven't seen Genghis Khan's name pop up once. I don't know if any vampire or werewolf or mage clan claims him, because I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that in the Akashics. I haven't seen that with the Kuei Jin. I haven't seen that with any other werewolf. So we're going to tell the story now.
Okay.
Genghis Khan was originally born as Temujin, who was the son of Yasuge, who was a Mongolian chieftain, and these guys were not Silent Striders, Shadow Lords. And Temujin was a mama's boy at the time. Yasuge's children, these were all very powerful conquerors, very powerful warriors, while Temujin namely just spent all day at home and just did everything his mama told him, and never really grew into the man that he was expected to be.
Right.
He eventually found a wife, but that wife was stolen by raiders, and Temujin was incredibly depressed about it. And during one of his days of crying, a man called Jemuka came to him and said, "Well, why are you so upset?" And Temujin tells him, "My wife has been taken." And Jemuka says, "Okay, big deal. I've got 20 wives. I can give you one of mine if you want." But Temujin says, "No, I genuinely love this woman. I want to be with her for the rest of my life." And Jemuka says, "Okay, I'm going to train you up, and me and you are going to go in by ourselves and raid this entire camp and get your wife back. But never tell anyone we did this over one woman." And Temujin trains up, and he becomes a very powerful warrior under Jemuka, who, as it turns out, is another Shadow Lord. They go in, they raid the camp, they both go into Kronos, they wipe the floor with everybody. And Jemuka is so impressed as to how strong Temujin is that he says, "We need to turn you into a captain. You need to start leading my army." Mm-hmm. They start training, and him and Jemuka start going across the entirety of Mongolia and start conquering and uniting the clans under one empire. And they meet another guy, Togrul, and he's an Akashic. These are the mages that use martial arts to cast spells. And they meet him, and he says, "You guys are pretty cool. I have this following of Akashics. Let's start forming an empire together." And the Mongol horde as we know it forms when they eventually conquer all the land there is to conquer in Mongolia. And things are great in this empire for a while, but Jemuka starts noticing that Temujin's getting more attention than him. That if anyone needs help, they're going to Temujin. If anyone wants any advice when it comes to how to raid a camp or defend a point, they're going to Temujin. And Jemuka's name is beginning to vanish. He goes over to Temujin and says, "We know how this is going to end. One of us will be the leader of the Mongol horde. It's going to be you, or it's going to be me, and we can't lead this at the same time. Pick up your sword. We're settling this today." And Temujin doesn't want to do it. He keeps trying to talk Jemuka out of the fight until all the persuading in the world won't sway Jemuka. They pick up their swords, they have a final fight, and Temujin is the one to walk away from it. Wiping the sword and the blood off his hands, Temujin becomes Genghis Khan. And under his power, the Mongol horde forms, conquers China, and makes its way over to the Ottoman Empire. And with that, that is going to be our little explanation as to how there are Silent Striders and Shadow Lords in Japan. Because they don't really explain how the Hakken form in any edition.
No.
So
I imagine, like, given their nature, that like they saw the power of a place and figured, hey, this is another bastion of very powerful human development. Why don't we send some of our people that way to find out how that happened? And then around about the same time that the Mongolians decided to invade Japan, the Shadow Lords wind up there and found the Hakim as well.
So Genghis Khan's time, he was alive between 1162 and 1227. So after he dies, the successors to his name decide they want to raid Japan. And so you have the Mongol invasion of Japan that goes on for years, and eventually they're repelled by the Japanese. But a few Shadow Lords stay behind, and they're greatly impressed at the militant culture of the Japanese. They're looking at all this stuff: jujitsu, judo, kendo, kenjutsu, iaido, and they are blown away by all these different martial arts. And they say, we want to stay here. We want to learn why these guys are so badass. So you have Shadow Lords who infiltrate the shogunate after the Mongol horde begins collapsing, because, the issue with the Mongol horde is that grew way too big, way too quickly, and then collapsed under the loss of leadership of Genghis Khan and multiple failed invasions. Mm-hmm. And that's how the Hakin form, because now you have Hakin who are becoming samurai and have infiltrated Japanese politics. Granted, almost all of them are Hamid, because there are no wolves in Japan. The Ainu people of Japan hunted all their wolves to extinction years ago, so there were no Ainu Wendigo. If there was to be a tribe for the Ainu people, it would be the Wendigo, but they're gone by the time the Shadow Lords get there. And the Shadow Lords stick around, and you still have a Shadow Lord presence in Japan. You look around Tokyo, and you might find a few members of the Yakuza who are actually werewolves. But back to Europe. So time goes on, and they're having an okay time in Byzantium. They're still talking with their Ventrue allies, and they notice a group of Assamites. And it becomes known to them the existence of Hakim, the existence of Shogli, and, well, we call them the Banu Hakim today, but back in the day they were called the Assamites, the Islamic vampire. And they're very impressed as to how a vampire can be an assassin, and this efficient of an assassin. If you play around with blood sorcery in Vampire the Masquerade, you know that you can just cause people to die of heart attacks.
Yeah, you can quite literally spend some blood points just to make someone's heart explode.
We had a fight in our vampire game where a vampire's head popped, and then a guy had a stake form in his own heart out of his blood.
Tabitha was staked upon her own blood, which is probably the most metal thing I've ever heard in my life. Chemomancy
is a very deadly, very nasty power in any story it appears in, and it's disgusting in World of Darkness. And years go on. Of course, the Ottoman Empire forms out of the remains of Byzantium once, the Justinian plague ruins everything. That may or may not have had something to do with Nurgle, but we don't know. And as the remains of Byzantium are smoldering, the Shadow Lords look and say, let's try rebuilding this place from the ground up all over again. We want to get a guy who's going to protect our kin and is going to pave the way for our total domination over Eastern Europe. Let's appoint you. And they point at one Vlad Zepesh. We're going to modify the story a little bit, because I think it's really stupid that they just trust a human to protect them. That's not something the Shadow Lords do. These guys don't trust anybody. They're out and out trying to get power for themselves. I need there to be a reason as to why they trust Dracula. So, for this story, it's not canon, but for this story, we're going to say that Dracula was kinfolk. That he was a member of the extended kin of the Shadow Lords that just never turned into a werewolf.
Right.
They appoint Vlad Zepesh, and Vlad Zepesh is protected by the Shadow Lords. And that's cool, and I have Turkish allies, but there's plenty of people that are out to kill me because they all want to be the leader. So Dracula, before he becomes Dracula, forms an idea. He is going to get 2 members of the Zimichi. He is going to get one of them to sire him, and then when he comes back from his change, he is going to diabolize the vampire who sired him and immediately gain the power of a 5th generation vampire right out the gate. As a neonate, I don't know how he pulled that off, because according to the rules of Diablerie and the mechanics behind it, it is almost impossible to pull that off, especially if you're starting with starting stats. And sure, you have a Zimichi vampire who's ruling over, well, Wallachia, and the Shadow Lords are okay with it. I mean, granted, the Ventrue proved to be pretty good allies, and they have cordial relationships with the Toreador and the Malkavians. Maybe we can do something with the Zimichi? No, you can't. No, you can't, because vicissitude corrupts. Dracula starts diabolizing other vampires, and eventually he gets the taste of vicissitude in his mouth. That corrupts his brain. And now he's turning on his Turkish allies. Now he's pulling everybody in the street. And it has become impossible to work with Dracula. So the Shadow Lords try to get him, but Dracula knows all the locations of their protectorates, of their cairns, of their septs. It's impossible to get Dracula. So instead they get one Nicholas Van Helsing to do the job for them. Granted, Helsing doesn't land the killing blow, but he at least gets Dracula out of power. And the Shadow Lords think, well, that could have gone better.
Yeah, just a little bit.
We would have done all that again, but we would have done it with a La Sombra this time.
Oh, like that'd make it any fucking different.
Yeah, the La Sombra. Ooh, you would have had the same thing happen all over again, but just much faster.
Yes.
It needs to be a Ventrue. You only ever work with the Ventrue. So, that went horribly. And this is when we get into the shifty parts of the historical fiction of Werewolf, because now we get to talk about colonization. And the Shadow Lords, this is the worst part of their book, in my not so humble opinion. And the reason why is because of the Camazotz. I know that not everyone knows about Islam, but I was looking through the book. I said Islam. Okay, that's not what I wanted to say.
Everybody doesn't know about what?
Everybody doesn't know everything about Aztec mythology.
There you go.
So the Mother Gaia, in terms of how the Aztecs saw her, was known as Ixchel. And Ixchel was the creator deity of the Aztecs, where I think I might be telling you the wrong one, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I think I might have the wrong guys in my hand.
Well, I mean, it's an ancient culture that's been lost to the ages for hundreds of years. It's hard to pin everything down.
You're getting everything we're not editing any of this out.
No.
Okay, I have it this time.
There you go.
Okay, the gods we're looking for is Coatlicue. You spell that Coatlicue. That's how you spell it. And for the sake of it, we're just going to call her Mother Gaia for this.
I am not going to spell that in the comments.
So, she isn't the kind and caring Mother Goddess you think she is. She was the dark, romantic view of nature, where if you die, I don't care. I know I'm brutal, and I love myself, so that makes it okay. If you die, it's your own fault. And every god in Aztec mythology is out to try to kill her. They're trying to destroy the world, by that's all their myths. But one, Huitzilopochtli, is the one and only guy who is keeping Mother Gaia alive. And if you looked at one of our old episodes, the Ministry episode, Huitzilopochtli is actually a Baali.
Yes.
The demon-summoning, demon-conversing vampire. Not exactly what you would see as a hero.
No, definitely not.
So it's very strange, and that's always been what's been super, super interesting to me about the Baali. Because these were guys who wanted to form contracts and contacts with demons, and they got what they wanted, and then realized what a massive mistake that was, and then do everything they can to appease the demons that they just called. Because they know if they mess up the sacrifice once, it's going to be the apocalypse.
And it was technically for them in the form of the technocracy showing up.
You had the Shadow Lords who came over with the Spanish conquistadors because they wanted to know what the ocean looked like. And they got there with Christopher Columbus. They looked around. They saw the Uktena. Cool, we got wolves here. Hello, Uktena. It's nice to meet you. I'm a Shadow Lord.
Yo, what?
Oh, you're right. You don't speak her language. Never mind. Let's go meet some other guys. We got some jaguar people over there. I've never seen those before. I've heard about there being cats from the Silent Striders. I didn't know they looked like this here. There's the rare crocodiles they talked about. I thought we killed them all. Okay. Oh, what is that? And they point over into the distance and they see the Camazots. And the Camazots in Aztec myth, Camazots is a god in that, and he is an out-and-out villain. The two heroes, their version of Ramus and Remus, Hunahpu and Xbalanque.
Romulus?
Ramus and Remus. They have Xbalanque and Hunahpu. Camazots just out-and-out kills Hunahpu. Just completely unprovoked. Just rips his head off as he's flying by, and then scatters his blood through Xibalba. The Camazots, the way they're written in the story is that they were just hapless victims who were just genocided by the Shadow Lords. That's a really stupid idea because the Shadow Lords don't kill their enemies on sight. We just talked about how in first edition they talked with the Brujah and Ventrue instead of killing the Brujah and Ventrue, and only attacked them because they were told by leadership they had to do it. That conclusion doesn't sit with me. Because why the fuck did you never capture one of these guys and interrogate them? The Shadow Lords get bonuses to interrogation.
And not only that, it's like they're salty about Silverfang leadership as it is, which is thousands of years in the making at this point in time. Which means why would they obey orders without knowing the full picture? Like, as how it was originally described to me, is like they thought that the Camazots were just a tribe full of gangrel, which is probably one of the more hated clans of vampire within the Garo Nation. And so the story was that when they said, hey, there's this giant tribe full of gangrel, go over there and kill them because they're leeches in the Pure Lands, and they did, and then they realized they'd made a terrible mistake. But between both me and John, that story does not sit well with us.
These guys weren't drinking blood. Did you not see these guys not engage in vampirism, not ghoul anybody, walk around during the day? Did you not see any of that? And it's such a stupid story. It's so poorly written, with such a horrible grasp on reality and being interesting as historical fiction. It's such a stupid story. So we're changing it. Those little changes we were talking about, we're changing one of this now. The Camazots, as we're changing it, deserve their deaths. They were wormish in nature. These were a changing breed who actively... and they loved the worm. They wanted to see burnt dead bodies. They wanted blood in their eyes, gore in their teeth.
God damn it.
We're referencing Alice's Restaurant, our favorite song.
Don't fucking listen to that song. It's 18 fucking minutes
You
long.
listen to the whole thing when you start it.
Oh, Jesus.
And around this time, the Shadow Lords were talking to the Balam, because they found Huitzilopochtli, a guy that the Balam were talking to, very interesting. And they might have talked to Huitzilopochtli directly, and I said, can you please help us kill this age-old enemy? We've been trying to handle the Camazots ourselves for years. And the Uktena think that they can work with them. And the Uktena are kind of shifty. You don't seem shifty. Ironic, telling that to a Shadow Lord. Can you please handle this for us? And the Shadow Lord said, sounds great. We love making new friends. And genocided the shit out of the Camazots, and they loved it. And they started calling the Getaferis and the Fianna. And they said, Getaferis, you told us next time we need you to kill somebody, we'll tell you. We got some guys you need to kill. Hey, Fianna, you guys are bored in Ireland? Come with us to Pure Lands. Let's kill some bats. And they both said, awesome, let's do it. And so they both went over, and the bats had one more ace up their sleeve. As an ultimate screw you to the world, they said, if we're all going to die, you're coming with us. And they did a psychic scream that rippled through the Umbra that released the Eater of Souls, the consumption worm. And it starts making its way to North America, where it will surface and destroy the world. And the Shadow Lords look around and say, well, shit.
They didn't think that plan through, did they?
Yeah, we didn't think that they had us dead to rights the entire time. We didn't know they had that power. So they start scrambling over, but the Uktena stand in their way and say, what the fuck? You just killed the Camazots, and the Shadow Lords say they deserved it. The wrong thing you want to say to to the Uktena.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Shadow Lords and Uktena start fighting each other, and they spend so much time bickering and fighting that the Eater of Souls just makes its way right past them, and the Shadow Lords can't do anything about it. And then around this time, their contacts with Huitzilopochtli and the Balam fall through. The Spanish technocracy gets to Huitzilopochtli, seemingly kill Sweet Soul Pokely. We don't exactly have a dead body to look at, but we know they did kill Tezcatlipoca, who was his right-hand man. Don't cry for Tezcatlipoca, he's now a spirit. He's now a totem.
All's well that ends well.
So, as the Shellords are trying to get a Silent Strider to send a message over to the Croatan and the Wendigo saying, there's the Eater of Souls heading your way, do something, the Silent Striders say, oh, we already know, we already have a solution. Well, what's the solution? The Croatan are going to sacrifice themselves and stop the Eater of Souls. And before the Shellords can say, don't do that, the Croatan go through with it. Granted, the Shellords didn't have an alternative solution, but they know that that wasn't exactly the solution they should have gone through, and the Shellords do feel genuine guilt over that. They say, if we knew the bat was going to do that, if we knew that the Eater of Souls was going to appear, we would have really planned that attack out. We do have an alternative term of events where, I don't know, maybe if you want the Camazotz to stay as nice people, instead of the Camazotz, releasing the Eater of Souls, because why would a peaceful group want to do that? Instead, you can have the Shellords look over their shoulder and see the technocracy moving through, and knowing something about the Akashic Brotherhood, knowing something about the Order of Hermes, they would have intentionally released the Eater of Souls from hiding, and then released it through South America as a means of attacking the technocrats and eating their avatars. Granted, that would be... That's the scenario that we didn't put as much love and thought into.
Yeah.
And that's something like we said because, no, the Shellords wouldn't have done that. But you could do that as an alternate take for your Chronicle.
Sure. It would have directly violated the litany, but the Shadowlords are iffy on the litany as it is.
And it would kind of play in with the Shellords too, because they would rather have a dead world than a world that they don't rule. So, depending on what turn of events you want it to be, the Croatan are dead. The Shellords are very upset about that. And there's another very powerful Bane roaming around America because of the Camazotz. The Storm Eater. A guy who has the power to make tornadoes. And then they appear in the real world and then they destroy everything they come across. And the Wendigo and Actena of the region already have a plan on stopping that. They're going to sacrifice themselves. But the Shellords say, oh no, we had a hand in making this mess. Let us sacrifice a few of our great Philodoxes and Theurges to this too. So they participate and through a great sacrifice seal away the Storm Eater. And that plot point ends. A little unceremonious, but it's under control now.
Yep.
And then years go on, the Shellords start thinking maybe we need to think this thing through before we try another colonization effort. Because we got some bases of our own in America, because the Croatan all died and they're not taking these places anymore, and we got a good cordial relationship with the Balam, but the Actena and Wendigo hate us. And we gained some, but we lost a bunch at the same time, and that could have gone way better. So they sat on their laurels for a little while, and then World War II happens. And when that happens, the Shadowlords are very happy. The Ottoman Empire is gone, and the Allies come in, topple the German Empire, ruin the Austrians and Hungarians, and they see the Allies forming something, but they have an even better idea. They look over further to the east, and they see the Russian Revolution, and they say, we want a piece of that. And they beeline for Russia, and hop right in, and they say, this is awesome, we're right in Silverfang territory, and the Silverfangs are doing jack shit about this. They're scrambling to save the Tsars. No. We see this guy, Joseph Stalin, and we love this idea. Not because
During the revolution, it was more Lenin than it was Stalin.
Yeah, they were Leninist. But they were looking at Joseph Stalin in particular, and they said, we see a big man, and we really like big men. And we want to see this guy in power, and we will make ourselves the advisors. This is exactly what we want to do with Rome all over again. And they give all their resources to Stalin, and he wins. The Russian Revolution goes off with a success, and Communist Russia forms. And the Shadowlords do not give a shit about communism, but they do it for their own advancement. So they form the KGB. They go over to Stalin and say, you're going to need some guys that are going to need to look over your shoulder and
Erase people from existence who call you the wrong name.
Yeah, we don't want anyone thinking that you're weak, and we don't want the Americans or the other Europeans thinking you're weak either. We think you need some big men like us to make sure the biggest man of all, which is you, stays in power. And Stalin approves of it, and the KGB forms, and every KGB operative is a Shadow Lord. You have a few that are trolls, because I remember seeing that. No, not trolls in the KGB. They're part of the CIA, because I saw that picture in the Kith book Trolls. But they start looking around and notice the Camarilla sticks their head up. And they reach over and they say, "Oh, you! We can recognize you. You're Ventru. And we know all about your guys. We know about Hardstat. We know about all these guys. And we love the Ventru." And the Ventru say, "You kind of scare us, but are you trying to make a deal?" And they say, "Yes, let's make a deal." And so the Shadow Lords, with them in control of the deal, form a partnership with the Russian Camarilla, which are mostly Ventru and Nosferatu. And boom, that is the best partner they have. We talked before in the Glassworkers episode about them teaming up with the Giovanni.
Yep.
And that's a really stupid idea, considering that the Giovanni want to destroy the world. But the Camarilla, that's a group that wants to maintain the world the way it is forever. And you have so many awesome allies with that. I mean, the Bruja and Gangrel, but the Nosferatu, the Malkavians, the Toreador, the Ventru, the Tremere.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. The minute you start getting your hands on that Chantry, all the information that the Tremere keep, granted, the Tremere are going to be really lock and key under that, because you really need to win the Tremere over in order to get any of their secrets and any of their information.
Tremere, as we discussed and as we saw in the game, Tremere and Tamichi are the two clans of vampire that can win one-on-one with a vampire. They're going to be bloodied after it.
Yeah,
they can win.
They can easily kill a vampire, a werewolf by themselves, because you have any form of thaumaturgy that a Tremere could be stepping into. You have Tremere that will shoot fire from their hands, that they are the greatest psychics in the world. They will remove your will to live just from looking at you. The minute you form an alliance with the Tremere, granted, you have no reason to ever trust a Tremere, but as long as the ops are good and you're both scratching each other's backs, those are going to be some very, very good years.
As we've seen through the Shadow Lord's history, they don't really care about trust as much as they do about personal gain.
And there was nothing but gains in terms of the Tremere. And of course, they start getting Toreador and Ventru money. They start getting Nosferatu and Malkavian information. And the Bruja and Gangrel do stuff. And then they eventually leave for the Anarchs, and then they get swapped out with the Assamites and the La Sombra. Hey!
They're back.
Yay, the La Sombra. Hey, remember that one time we tried infiltrating the Catholic Church, where we didn't bring it up in this episode because we brought it up so many times already, and you screwed us out of that? You work with us now. How's it feel? And then the Banu Hakim, they're very, very happy that they're working with the Banu Hakim. They tried getting these guys' trust during the Ottoman Empire ages, but the Ventru got to them first with a treaty, and the Shadow Lords just said, "Damn it! We want to get these guys first. We were going to have a entire clan that worked in the interest of werewolves, and then the Ventru got in the way of that.
Yep.
If you were Zamichi, we would kill you all, but no, you're the Ventru, and we like the Ventru. We'll leave it alone." But now that they're working with the Banu Hakim, the Shadow Lords are very happy that that partnership stands. And yeah, of course, Stalin dies, and then you have the whole bickering between Beria and Nikita Khrushchev. And in terms of World of Darkness, Beria didn't kill those people. Instead, it was Nikita Khrushchev who did, and he just planted the bodies in Beria's yard. And then Beria got wrongfully killed, and then you start having this whole back and forth between everybody who has their own vision for Russia, because everybody wants to be the big man. And then Mikhail Gorbachev ruins everything, and Boris Yeltsin lands the killing blow.
I mean, they didn't ruin everything. They got Pizza and Metallica playing in Moscow in '91. That was pretty good.
Did you get the pizza, Mikhail Gorbachev?
Yes.
And what did it cost?
Everything. And I got Metallica to play for an audience of 100,000 people. And Pantera was there. I don't know what they were saying.
And that man is now burning in hell where he belongs.
No, I think he did okay. He'll be fine.
You say that as a rabid anti-communist.
Yes, I did.
And,
America!
and what we're going to say, there's no way we can say this without being controversial because of current events. I fully believe that they didn't put this in there because they thought this would be a little bit too political for World Darkness. I can fully see Vladimir Putin being a Shadow Lord kinfolk.
Given, again, personal gain, Shadow Lord, autocrat of Russia, Vladimir Putin is 100% a Shadow Lord.
And given that Putin used to work for the KGB, which was all Shadow Lord.
Yes.
There's
not a shadow of a doubt in my mind. He absolutely is.
Granted, would that bring up the Shadow Lords supporting the war in Ukraine? Do we want to swap this beehive?
Given how current it is right now, and it's still going on, and people are still dying. We'll leave that.
Come back to us in 10 years when we give our conclusion.
Yeah, when we have all the facts and Hollywood's made a couple of movies about it.
And really, that's it. There is no ending to the Shadow Lords because they still have control over Russia. Russia is the one and only territory in the World of Darkness that werewolves control. Granted, you have the Camarilla being the scapegoats, where the Camarilla are the figureheads because, of course, they wrote Rage Across Russia. They wrote Russia by Night first, and then Rage Across Russia. But yeah, when you look at the underworld, you're going to find Camarilla, but behind the Camarilla are the Shadow Lords, and they know they're in charge, and they are very happy because now they've finally got the one up on the Silverfangs. The Silverfangs as a tribe are on their way out. None of them are living to see 30. And the Shadow Lords just gained power over an entire country with nuclear missiles that had America sweating in the 1960s. The Shadow Lords could not be in a better position. You talk about the upward mobility of the Black Furies, where that was a tribe that just gained and gained and gained as time went on. The Shadow Lords have everything now. They have everything they wanted. And now they're going to get more. Because if they get their way, they will eventually control the entire world. And forget about the Worm, forget about the Weaver, forget about the Wild. You won't have to worry about any of them anymore. The Gaia, they don't give a shit about Gaia anymore. The Shadow Lords will control everything. And it doesn't matter what the agenda is as long as they have the power.
I still think it's kind of funny that the Shadow Lords in this case would be rabid communists because they were utterly complicit in the Imperium. And to any tankies out there, yes, Stalin did starve all those people in Ukraine back in the 1930s.
You're not allowed to have all this food, fuck you.
Yeah. Oh, you have one extra dairy cow. Well, I guess you're going to have to go to the Gulag, Comrade Cringe.
Yep. And really that's it in terms of history.
Yeah, they own Russia.
And yeah, we end it like that because that's the way first edition ends it, and then second edition just kind of peters out. Granted, the Shadow Lords do say they are a little remorseful for killing that many people when they were working for the KGB, but it got them Russia, so, fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could have been worse.
Yeah, you want to convince me that you care about humanity? No, you care about yourselves.
Yeah, no, everything in the book points to them being completely selfish bastards.
But let's talk about totems.
Okay, yes, totems.
There's really only 3 you need to know about. There is another one called Typhon, but there's such little information as to who Typhon is in World of Darkness, and it's conflicting, because that's a name for Set, and it's also a name of a demon in Demon of Fallen, and we're just going to leave Typhon out of this entirely. There's only 3 names you need to know. The first of them being Grandfather Thunder. Once again, the great fascist in the sky. You click the Grandfather, which is Grandfather Mountain.
Click it yet.
Alright.
I'm doing the search.
It's not the Grandfather, because that's Grandfather Mountain in the Appalachians.
Yeah, I know, I got it.
We are looking at Grandfather Thunder before us today. And I don't want to say this guy's a tome of respect. Don't use the word respect around me. There's nothing respectable about you. And yeah, he gets his own little symbol. Good for you, you asshat. So this guy is going to be a background cost of 7. And from what I've seen, cross-referencing these books, this is pretty common. There is the little trading card of him in that failed World of Darkness game. That is what he looks like. But I mean, big. I'm like, big. This is a big wolf. Like 50 feet tall.
He is a large motherfucker.
When you look at this guy. So, you look at his stats over here. Thunder's packs can call upon an extra 5 willpower points per story, which is great. And they gain 3 dice to their etiquette. All pack members also gain 2 extra dice in intimidation when they invoke Thunder, and many Shadowlords see little difference between respect and fear. Each pack member gains 1 point of honor renown, and Shadowlords who follow this pack's activities, they have the interest of the clan, the tribe at heart, instead of the Garo Nation. The ban: Grandfather Thunder commands his children to give their peers and their rivals no more respect than they deserve. Don't be a kiss ass. You are the one in charge. You are the one in power. Unless they really blow you away, don't try to flatter anybody. You're the one in charge of the deal.
What if I think Shadowlords are all a bunch of selfish bastards that don't give a shit about the goals of the Gara?
Big dick energy. That's what you gotta have when you follow Grandfather Thunder. You want to talk about the Get of Famers having that? No, it's a requirement with the Shadowlords. We have another totem. Crow. Remember Crow? They didn't kill him. He's still around. And Crow, this guy is pretty similar to the Korax, but no, we have the actual Raven we're going to talk about in a minute. Crow, we described him in detail already. Packs who follow Crow gain 2 in alertness, 2 in subterfuge, and 1 in etiquette. And a totem, the totem spirit usually circles around, lands on the shoulder of the Garu, or he lands on the shoulder of the Garu that he's currently helping. You typically have birds follow you around for the entire story. You want to give away that you're a Shadowlord? Just look behind the man who's walking down the streets and you see the flock of crows flying behind him.
It's like that JonTron episode, I get an avian ally. This game is right up my alley.
And the ban. Crow's followers accept their station in the hierarchy of Garu, remaining loyal to those who serve. Some extend this to extreme tribal loyalty, while others interpret this as a fanatic support of an individual. Either way, the pack isn't zealous enough in supporting a more powerful Garu. The totem spirit will disappear for a while. If the pack doesn't notice or care, the totem spirit may orchestrate its own schemes to ensure that Crow's children return to the fold. He wants you to find a big man, and he wants you to put that big man in power.
Crow is basically just a giant sub and a simp.
And it's not needed, but you get a little bit of extra honor if you do this. He wants you to never carry money. He says that all the money you'll ever need for the rest of your life, I'll provide it to you. You'll just have money fall into your lap, and then you immediately spend it. You're kind of bordering the line between Shadowlord and Bonar when he plays this guy. But what's that we see below there? Crow of War. There's another crow?
There is.
Well, let's check him out. The Crow of War. This is the full embracing my identity as the demigod of war crimes part of Crow. Crow, they'll give you 2 points to alertness and subterfuge and etiquette. And Crow, as his children remain loyal to those who serve him, he does not expect his children... He does not expect this from his children whose leaders treat them poorly, however, or those whose leaders are corrupt. In these instances, Crow asks his children to find ways to remove these leaders from power. He wants you to make sure that leadership is going to stay the way that he wants it, and if he's not satisfied with the leader, kill him.
Hence the extra points in alertness and subterfuge as well as etiquette.
It's a good way of getting a jump on your opponent.
Very much so.
You may be saying, well, this isn't exactly a glorious way to fight somebody. That's the point. The Shadowlords don't care that much about glory.
No.
Honor, sure, but that's only because they're trying to save face. And we have one more guy we want to talk about. We've brought up before the Korax several times when we've talked about World of Darkness. This is their liaison, and the reason why they have such a good relationship with the Korax. Raven. Let's talk about Raven. So you see him. Yeah, you have his picture on screen. I guess that's like... And, well, that's not actually what he looks like. It's just a wood carving. So you got Raven over there. And Raven is kind of weird. He's a genius. He is an evil genius. But he also is a tattletale. He's a snitch. So, very strange to talk to. I mean, you'll have amazing conversation with him, but he'll give everything you told him away to whoever pays him or whoever he feels like telling. So, this is a guy where every conversation you have with Raven, you're on your toes the entire time. The benefits from Raven. Individually, you'll get a point of wisdom renown, which is always good. As a pack, you'll get 3 dots of survival, 1 in subterfuge, and 1 in enigmas. And the Koraks are well disposed towards followers of this totem. The ban is that you can carry no money. Ravens will give you the money that you need, and then you immediately get rid of it. Very similar to Crow. It's because so many people mistake crows for ravens, ravens for crows. It's like the sound they make, because crows will make a caw, ravens will make a rock kind of sound.
Yep.
And also the wing difficulty, because it looks like crows have finger feathers and ravens have a distinct curve to their wings.
Yep.
So it makes sense why they blur the line so closely. Notice the other references down there too. You see that? Red Talons?
Yes, I do.
The same Red Talons who are very difficult to talk to and don't like any other tribe.
Yes.
They like the Charlords specifically because they have Raven in their brood.
Yes.
That's the one thing you can get, you can accomplish with a Red Talon. Red Talons will probably kill a Charlord on sight, probably for just being Hamid or being too white. But if they have Raven with them, or a Jackling or Gaffling of Raven, or they use a Korax as a messenger instead, the Red Talons will say, we're game. Whatever you tell us, we'll do it.
Basically. And we'll get to that later when we talk about the relationships between them as well.
Speaking of which, we can talk about relationships now.
Yes, we can. Let me get my fancy ass notes up. And let me get to my other camps here. I didn't have that up, but I'll just say that we're over in this a ways.
We will talk about the camps. We can very quickly skim through Breeze as he's pulling this up. And it's that there really is no difference between Breeze amongst Shadow Lords. There is no different treatment between any of them. If you are a Metis, they honestly do not care. Sure, it goes against the litany, but they say Metis tend to be very badass despite their deformities. Tyler, in our game, may have seizures, but he's surviving getting stabbed through the heart. He can
twice.
Yeah, he can still work as a great soldier.
And I can heal, which is very. And I negotiate with all the spirits.
We need to bring these Metis out to the front line so they can get their asses beat in front of us, so we can sneak around and get the kills. I mean, so we can train them to be good warriors. Please die in our name.
Put me in, coach.
And it really does not matter between breeds with them. And you want to do relationships?
I'll start with camps,
all right,
just so we can get some more background.
All right, let's do camps.
And then
we're looking at cairns.
Well, yeah, we are looking at cairns, but there isn't a section on here for other. Yeah. Oh wait, no, for camps.
Yeah, the camps right there.
Okay, so
we talked a little bit about the Hakken. That's just Shadow Lords in Japan. Don't worry about it.
Just quick side note, really. So, firstly, the Lords of the Summit. So, most of the Shadow Lords belong to this camp. They are the largest camp within the Silver Fang Cairns. They proclaim that only the most worthy leaders should lead war against the worm. However, this has the side effect of having a continuous state of martial law to promote tyranny. If you all remember the litany says that you can only challenge a leader in times of peace. Leaders of war must remain a leader until the war is over. But given the Garo Nation is almost perpetually at war with the worm, then you're rarely ever going to see any shift in leadership. And given what we were talking about with both Crow and Grandfather Thunder, you could tell why this is one of the most populous tribes within the Silver Fangs. So they usually... What's up?
Something I noticed with Werewolf Den when they did their stupid episodes, they brought up before that the Get Ephemeris is deeply tied in with the idea of fascism. That's complete fucking bullshit. The Shadow Lords
are deeply tied in fascism.
I can say that 100% in full confidence about the Shadow Lords.
Yes, absolutely. They are absolute tyrants. They're only out for themselves and their own personal power, and you'll find that even further when we talk about the relationship with other tribes.
If you're playing the Lord of the Summit, you are not a good person.
No.
No, by no means.
Not. It is also rumored that the most powerful of the Lords of the Summit are rewarded by Grandfather Thunder with the power to mask the taint of the worm. Why you would want to use that is far beyond me and is begging for corruption.
Another hint that these guys were intended to fall to the worm in their story.
Yes, and speaking of Taint of the Worm, Bringers of the Light. So, as the book says, they instead of following the path of power, they follow a path of conquest. They seek strength within themselves by continuously contesting themselves against the Taint of the Worm directly. They actively seek out and overcome temptation in order to prove themselves as strong warriors of the Garrow. And they make extensive deals with the Camarel and the Sabbat in order to tempt themselves to their ways. They stay for very long periods inside Black Spiral Dancer hives, and they even venture directly to corrupted planes like Malpheus and the Atrocity Plane. Could you tell us a bit about the Atrocity Plane?
The Atrocity Plane is the realm of the Calamity Worm.
So just straight into his den.
You know who Korn is from Warhammer.
Yes.
Imagine that.
Just that, but a giant worm.
Just constant destruction that never stops.
Fire alarm, good, let it burn. That way. So, many of them, obviously, fall immediately to the corruption of the worm because of how powerful it is. Those who survive are said to be more and more resilient on subsequent visits. Garrow who succeed immediately gain a whole lot of honor for that because they ventured into the den of the worm and returned alive. And they are also rumored to be allied with the light serpents within the Sabbat. Could you tell us a bit about the light serpents?
The Serpents of the Light, we met one of those in the vampire game. That was the Travis Touchdown lookalike, Pharaoh Suarez.
Yes, Pharaoh Suarez, who actually was a decent person.
Because if you want to talk about good people within Vampire Society, you can only talk about two groups, the Salubri and the Serpents of the Light. Because the Serpents of the Light are Setite anti-tribu, who want to overthrow and spit in the eye of everything that Set talked about. They hate everything about Set and want to overthrow it. And given that the Sabbat, some of them will form coteries that perform active manhunt against other vampires, sometimes against members of the Sabbat within their own groups. That's a very good ally to have because, once again, we talked in the Ministry episode about how useful Serpentis can be. And just turning to that giant snake form if you have a Serpent of the Light Elder on your side. And something about the Bringers of the Light. It's a little easier for them because a pure breed Shadow Lord will always have Black Fear.
Yep.
Yeah, that's typically what they look like when they go into Lupus form. So, if you have points in pure breed, the more and more you look like a Black Spiral Dancer. And this is an incredibly dangerous job, considering how easy it is to get corrupted. Just being in proximity to a Black Spiral Dancer for a long amount of time can get you baned. And spend enough time around them, eventually you become either a Black Spiral Dancer or a Fomori. And if either of those happen, it's game over for that character. Make a new sheet.
Basically, yes. Moving on from that, we already talked about the Haken. Next is the Judges of Doom. I didn't find a whole lot on this, not in the book that I had.
I can go on about it.
So the Judges of Doom, they are sort of the Inquisition amongst the werewolves. They ensure that no one falls directly to the taint of the worm. They make sure everyone follows the litany. They're probably mostly Philodox for that reason.
So try pulling this guy up on screen as I'm talking about him. There's a legacy character called Thunder's Roar, to the Warhammer 40k Inquisition, where the commissars come around with their hats and they interrogate you for hours if they hear that they've gotten even one report that you might be talking to the forces of the worm. And they will go medieval on you. They know that you're a werewolf, you can regenerate, we can do whatever we want to you for 8 hours. And then we'll come back tomorrow and do it all over again after we keep you in a penitentiary. But we won't let you sleep. We're going to flash lights into your eyes and continuously interrogate you until you tell us exactly what we want to hear. And we know that you're telling the truth. And if we find out that you are a conspirator with the worm, you're going to give us the list of your co-conspirators within 30 seconds, or we're just going to assume that everyone in your tribe is also a conspirator, and we're going to interrogate them the same way we interrogated you. These guys don't fuck around when it comes to looking around. They know the dangers of worm corruption from the bringers of the light. They know how easily this can spread. They know how quickly this can go under their noses because they're looking at the Fianna and their history and how their silver fangs were corrupted the entire damn time. And if the bringers of light just interrogated them once, maybe the Fianna would have had a much different history.
Yes.
And the guy who started all of it is this guy right here, Thunder's Roar. This is one of my favorite characters in World of Darkness. This is a Metis Shadow Lord who ripped his way out of his mother's womb and killed her at birth because his Metis deformity is gigantism. This guy is 14 feet tall in Kronos form. Imagine how big that axe is in his hand. And because of his own shame and guilt as a Metis, he formed the Judges of Doom as the keepers of the litany. And the minute he found out that his fellow werewolves and kin were corrupted and following the ways of the worm, he picked up an axe and in one night massacred that entire cairn while quoting the litany as he slayed each victim. And nobody could stop him because he was just that otherworldly powerful as a Metis. And because of that night, he formed the Judges of Doom, who were the Inquisition of the werewolves, who went around and made sure that nothing worm-related ever snuck into the werewolf nation ever again. And this guy is such a horrifying badass because his entire history just reads off as a horror story. But he's a hero in a way.
Well, he's a hero to the Garrow Nation. A very vicious, violent, and destructive hero. But he does prevent the spread of the worm taint throughout the cairns of the Garrow.
And he's part of the reason why they inspired the camp of the Lazarite movement. We're not going to get too into detail about that because that camp doesn't exist anymore.
Because the fight's already pretty much won.
These were a lobbying group that wanted more rights in the hands of the Metis. Because they said, we've got Thunder's Roar as an example right here, and we've got plenty of other werewolves that we can talk about that prove that Metis make for very, very, very dangerous warriors. We need to make more of them, and we need to treat them with respect. They first change at birth. They grow up in the nation. They're surrounded by spirits. They know more about the fight than everyone else. We need to give these guys a better reputation. And they got their way in 2nd edition. So the Lazarite movement doesn't really exist anymore. You can have your Shadowlord be a former member of it and then become part of another camp instead. Yeah. Typically, I would put them into Children of Crow, who we will talk about now.
Okay, the Children of Crow. Going back to the page, the Children of Crow are they follow an ancient tradition where they forego the call of ambition for political expediency. We talked about Crow and what his totem does earlier. And so what they do is they gain power by serving people more powerful than themselves. Anyone who follows Crow falls within this camp, and Crow gives them the power of detection and perception that other Garrow don't have. And as the servants, they never really gain any authority for themselves. They sacrifice power for the sake of stability and expediency within their tribe. By serving people more powerful than themselves, they manage to make things a lot more efficient for the leadership of the Shadow Lords. Now, the Crow serves the will of the Grandfather Thunder, but they trust Crow's guidance first. However, it is rumored that there is an alliance between the Crow leaders and the Were-Ravens. As well, the Korax may be called upon to assist servant crows in return for favors of their own.
And these guys make for some very nasty spirits too, because you saw in our last game a Stormcrow.
Yes.
And you saw how very handy those are.
Yes, because I was on the verge of death. If that vampire would have breathed on me, I would have died.
But that's not the only spirit they have. They also have other spirits like the Pain Spirits, who are described as these little goblins, like the little Hodgkinville goblin, who will just stand over you and torture you in the Umbra, and you will feel it in the material plane. And the ways that the Children of Crow, all the different means they have of hurting you, do not underestimate this group, because, like we said with the Ministry, you wish death would come to you quicker if the Children of Crow are after you, because these guys are assassins. Sure, they are fixers. They hire other assassins to go after you. Sometimes they want to do the job themselves, but they have all day. They don't have anything else to do that day. Maybe they can drag you back to the cairn and torture you for a little while.
Yep.
After all, the Shadowlords are a pretty nasty tribe. We talked about just how brutal they can be in the Judges of Doom.
Yes. So earlier we talked about the Camisards. This is another smaller group called the Children of Baath. In order to make up for the massacre of the Camisards, the Shadow Lords were trying to go to bat in order to turn him to the will of Mother Gaia as opposed to being a worm totem. Because the bat originally was followed by the Camisards until they were all killed, and the Camisards were indeed tainted by the worm. So basically all the Shadow Lords are doing are trying to say, hey, we killed all your tribe, we're more powerful than them, and we serve a greater purpose. Bat, why don't you help us, and we'll turn you away from the worm. That's all they're really trying to do there.
And it kind of sort of worked because they got a third of Bat to work for them. 2/3 of Bat still works with the worm, but they have a small sliver of Bat that they can work with. Granted, it comes with a massive loss in honor and renown, but they got somewhere with it, and it makes sense why they're going for Bat, because he's the most reasonable out of all the worm spirits. I mean, you look at guys like Hakaken and Kirajama, and there's no way you can negotiate peace with them. Bat, you at least have some sort of hope with.
Alright, now I didn't see this. I saw this in the book that I had, but it's not written in the wiki. There are two particular secret societies that lurk within the Shadow Lords. The first one is called the Masks. These guys are psychological terrorists. All they do is instill fear. They practice mutilation upon themselves to inspire horror in their victims. They believe that defeat of the enemy can be done through terror instead of outward violence to them. And there is a rumor that they've also formed an alliance with the few remaining Niktuku. Could you go into detail about the Niktuku?
I can explain the Nintuku because this is the most terrifying vampire there is.
Yes.
The Nosferatu have always been the most unassuming vampire clan, because these guys are ugly as shit, and nobody ever thinks they're that dangerous until they have their neck ripped apart by the single finger of a Nosferatu. They're that physically powerful. And they have a little assassin sect created by Absimiliard, the Nosferatu antediluvian. And these were elder vampires made with the sole intention of not just exterminating every member of Clan Nosferatu, but every vampire period. You have stories of Baba Yaga, who is involved in a little adventure module, where you need a full pack of 6 wolves just to bring her down to size, but she's not killed. Another Niktuku finishes the job, Vasilisa, who is another Niktuku who finishes the job, who's been around for 10 millennia. Imagine the amount of power you accumulate over that long of a period of time. This is somebody who was born during the Age of Miracles, antediluvian years. You can't fight that. So if the Shadow Lords found a way to get the Niktuku on their side, this might be the one hope we actually have against the Glasswalkers taking over.
Yes.
Because that is the Mac Daddy. That is the Mac Daddy vampire. That is as close as you're going to get to an antediluvian being on your side. And, well, sure, you have Augustus Giovanni walking around if the Glasswalkers want to try leaning on the Giovanni, but in all honesty, Augustus Giovanni isn't that powerful. He's never going to be as powerful as Cappadocius was because of the year he was born in. Yeah. Cappadocius was around when God was actively intervening with the lives of humanity. Augustus Giovanni was born in the Dark Ages. So, these vampires, these guys could possibly, hypothetically, kill an antediluvian if they were in the right situation at the right time. So, I can't think of a more useful vampire ally to have than the Nintuku.
Yes, and the only ones that we know of so far in the Caro that actually are allied with them are the Masks, and the other one is the Society of Nidhogg. So these guys, they gain power from the elemental forces of darkness. They study the weather and magic in order to find great communion with Grandfather Thunder. However, their fanaticism is so extreme they believe that sunlight itself is a threat to Thunder's power, and they seek to plunge the world into eternal darkness and secretly work alongside the La Sombra in order to do so. Some claim they work against the Shadow Lords themselves in defense of Vlad Tepes, and for this reason, the Bringers of Light absolutely detest them. They want to plunge the world into darkness just to make Grandfather Thunder stronger.
We've made a joke before about the Shadow Lords, that they are vampires who want to be the werewolves that want to be vampires. Now you get it in a literal sense with them, because these are werewolves who are trying to be vampires.
They want to plunge the world into darkness. I mean, take it more clear than that.
And it wouldn't surprise me if they were ghouling themselves too, where if they went up to the Sombra that they were friends with and said, "Can you please spit your vitae into my mouth?" And then they went and did so. Granted, that's a massive honor renown loss if that happens to you, but just having a discipline on hand. Granted, some disciplines are way more useful than others, because if you have single level of fortitude or potence, I mean, big deal, but just having 1 point in dominate or presence would make that much of a difference. And obtenumbration, just being able to dispose of a body through shadows, that's a massive advantage. And should we talk about auspices real quick?
Yes, let's go over them.
Okay, so we talked about how these guys are a little shifty, right? Imagine just how incredibly difficult it is to get information out of a Shadow Lord Ragabash. I mean, granted, you're talking to Reynard in our werewolf game.
Yes,
and
and he's a get, mind you.
You know how hard it is to get information out of him.
Very.
So you have guys who are masters of interrogation and being interrogated. This is a guy who will die before you get him to confess to anything. These guys also know how to get any and all information out of anybody. These guys make for incredible spies. You will never beat a Shadow Lord at the espionage game. Granted, there is one other group who could do that, and that would be the Silent Striders, namely because they have ghosts. But because of just how tightly knit the Shadow Lords are with the Korax, I don't think that's possible.
No.
Because these guys are constantly trading information with each other. And those Theurges?
Yes.
We're going to talk about a fetish item. We typically don't do that because we support the idea of making your own fetishes, but there's a fetish in the game called the Blood Chalice, where the fetish is used as part of a intimidation ritual. You bring a human who has wronged you into your lair. You're in Kronos when you do this to scare the shit out of him, and he's going to remember this happening, but nobody's going to believe him if you tell him this. You go over, prick his hand, squeeze his blood into a chalice, and then drink that in front of him. And it freaks him the fuck out after you do that. Imagine just all the different ways that the urges of the Shadow Lords have of horrifying you. This is a group that is made for causing terror, but not in the way that the Red Talons do, because their fear comes from, I'm a big wolf and I'm beating the snot out of you, and that's the kind of terror I'm inflicting. No, the Shadow Lords are psychological with it. They're visceral with their horror. That's the kind of horror that you are going to try to convince yourself was just a dream, but you know in your heart of hearts that it was real.
Yes, and that's the interesting thing that John and I were discussing this earlier today, and I mentioned that this would be against the litany because consumption of human flesh is strictly forbidden, especially within several rites within other tribes, the werewolves. However, as we said before, because the litany was itself written by, I think you said the Silverfangs wrote
the Silverfangs wrote majority of it, yes.
So it makes sense why the Shadow Lords would disregard the litany so blatantly, if only to scare the shit out of one human.
And after all, we're going to get more into that with relationships.
Yes.
Philodox, the super politician. You want to talk about a career politician, you want to talk about the guy who says everything and nothing at the same time. So Kamala Harris and Mike Pence.
Yes.
Yes, you're going to have that. You're going to have a guy who knows how to say everything. You're playing a guy who has the right answer to everything. You're playing a guy who can talk his way out of any situation. We watched Oppenheimer.
Yes, we did.
Yesterday. And we saw that majority of that was a court procedure.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Where they kept saying it's not a court, but that's what it was a court hearing.
Yeah, but Strauss, the guy that sought to shoot down Oppenheimer's security clearance in his position on the AEC, He more than likely would be a Shadow Lord, Shadow Lord Philodox.
Along with that, Roger Robb.
Yes.
Who was constantly hounding him the entire time, where Roger Robb was trying to piss off Oppenheimer the entire time.
Yeah, he was just beating on him psychologically.
Yeah, that's what you got when you have a Shadow Lord, and especially if he's a Judge of Doom. You've got a guy who's going to get the answers out of everybody. Once again, we said Masters of Interrogation. This guy, he's going to beat the Rakabash in terms of interrogation. Granted, the Rakabash will never confess, but the Philodox will get under his skin.
Yes, they will.
Galliard. Once again, we're still on the subject of career politicians, but now we're going, like kind of guy who blurs the line between CEO and politician.
Yes.
Where this is a guy who's going to come out and give you the little TED talk. He's going to say, hello, my name is Wrath of the Storm. This is very official. Very official. We have killed this many people in 2021. We're going to kill this many people in 2023. That's a 15% increase in murder. And everybody applauds. Please clap.
He's the Speaker of the House is what he is.
Once again, we're going along the lines of like career politicians here. And yeah, you can have a few Shadow Lords that go down a musical route instead. I'm thinking more like the scary satanic black label death metal.
Yeah, black metal. Yeah, all Shadow Lord Galliard are black metal musicians.
I would like to make an episode in the future about 40k and World Darkness similarities. And these guys, we brought up 40k before. These guys really, really feel similar to the Inquisition of Warhammer 40k. And now I'm imagining Werewolf Noise Marines, and I'm very happy about that. we dare you, whoever's listening to this, to make a Shadow Lord heavy metal artist who uses a guitar as a fetish weapon.
I have 3 guitars sitting over there on my shelf.
If you just like make a really dirty sound as you play that.
My shitty amp that's right behind me can absolutely do that. And the preamp I have up on the shelf there.
And we talked about Thunder's Roar just a few minutes ago. The rune of the Shadow Lords. You're not just a warrior. You're leaving horror stories wherever you go. Your death will be a tale to frighten children. That's what a Shadow Lord rune is going to tell you as he kills you. Because once again, honor and the story is so important to the Shadow Lord that a Shadow Lord rune is going to have plenty of stories to tell that are all going to sound like horror movies told from the perspective of Jason and Freddy Krueger when he talks about his kills. And once again, a Shadow Lord is going to play with his food as he's coming after you. As we talked about with Hakaken, that's a guy who won't kill you until you're at the peak of your fear. And once again, Hakaken, I believe we were talking about him, he was a Shadow Lord rune when he fell, and became a totem to the Black Spiral Dancers. That's what the Bringers of Light gone really, really wrong. This is the same, think of like Hakaken, but you're a good guy.
Yeah, good guy for the Garrow. For everybody else, you're just a walking terror.
Good in a very loose term. Once again, if you're playing a Shadow Lord, well, if you're a Lord of Summit, you definitely aren't a good person. If you are a Shadow Lord, you are probably not again a good person, but you might be better than the other Shadow Lords.
Yes.
Let's go into tribe relationships.
Okay. I don't have any picture of this. We're going back to Thunder's War just to fill it up. Fuck it. So we'll start with the Black Furies. So the Shadow Lords aren't a huge fan of the Black Furies, just from a personal standpoint. They fabricate and encourage any perceived insult to justify their sexism against men, and their own female Shadow Lords are more egalitarian by comparison, and the female Shadow Lords are stronger, so they say at least. However, they should not neglect the opportunity to harness the absolute resentful power of a Black Fury. As the old saying goes, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and the Shadow Lords absolutely know this. As it says, quoted from the book, discontent is our ally.
If they have a target that they want dead, that is a member of the Pentex board, or say a Black Spiral Dancer, and they manage to convince a Black Fury that, say, he's a rapist or he's a domestic abuser, they will use that as a means of recruiting Black Furies onto that hit. That's something that Child of Crow would do when talking to a Black Fury.
Absolutely.
Next up is probably our favorite one.
The Bonars. So, everybody says do not underestimate the Bonars, and they're absolutely correct. Do not forget lowly station leaves them underestimated. They are outstanding at gathering secrets within cities, and the Shadow Lords love secrets. Now, their shame and poverty does leave them perpetually in need of aid, but given the Shadow Lords try to paint themselves as the populists of the Garu Nation, they're going to try and help them as much as they can, but also as covertly as they can. If you help them, they will help you.
You're a Bonar. I'm a Shadow Lord. Come here.
Yeah, come here.
We're friends. We're friends now.
Oh.
You see me?
Well, would you like to try some of my soup?
Yes, I'll be delighted to try your soup. Do you have a baby? I'll kiss him in front of a camera.
No, but you and I can make one pretty buddy.
Are you a registered voter? Because if you vote for me, I'll make sure your family's well fed, all right? That's the kind of populist tactics that the Shadow Lords and Bonars are doing.
Yes. Next, the Children of Gaia. The Shadow Lords think it is a miracle they're not dead yet. They preach peace at the Concord, and it failed. They revel in sexual depravity. They're bigger sluts than the Fianna, and their peace and civility has severely weakened humanity and actively served the worm.
You think about what all the Children of Gaia are using their rage on. They're using it for the roughest sex you've ever had in your life, and it disgusts the Shadow Lords. They see these guys as complete losers. And granted, the Gaia family see them as complete losers too. In fact, I think half the nation just sees the Children of Gaia as just a giant waste of time.
Basically. And speaking of wastes of time, the Fianna, as the book quotes them, funny little Irishmen who, unquote, talk a whole lot of shit.
A funny little Irishman.
Oh, fuck off, you inbred bastard. And they're good when you need a drink or a song, but they aren't much use elsewhere. Unless you're a Theurge who's really good at healing, like myself.
As we saw with the Fianna episode, we talked about how the Shadow Lords really rubbed the Fianna the wrong way because they said, you're really giving us a bad vibe. We don't know what it is, but we don't like it. And the Shadow Lords say, we don't care what you think. Come fight with us.
And we did, and they were shifty, and we still don't trust them, but we killed things.
Yeah.
Okay, they get ephemeris. Simple fools. Great shock troops. Exploit their pride, give them something to fight. They're eager to die for false glory. The last thing a Get wants is to admit there's something he can't fight. So basically, if you find a Get, tell him there's something you need to kill. That is all they think that the Get are good for, is going out and killing something.
The modern day Get Ephemeris look back at their tribal history and say, we wasted so much time trying to be leaders. No, we are better on the front lines. We're better being soldiers. We are a tool. Use us as a tool. And the Shadow Lords say, sounds great. We're going to have a beautiful friendship.
And they were. They had a great time. This one really fucks with me, the Glasswalkers, as they are known as Ura, the Tainted Ones. However, they are in need of allies, and the Shadow Lords love to help them out. Especially with their contacts, they have access to resources that others do not, given their association with mages and the technocracy. And if one betrays you, just call them out as Ura, and everything immediately fixes itself.
That would be an incredibly deadly battle between Shadow Lord and Glasswalker should those two tribes ever fight each other, because we taught... And the Giovanni aren't that dangerous of an ally, but the Glassworkers have the Sons of Ether and Virtual Adepts as partners. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Technocracy in the future, but the Progenitors, in convention book Progenitors within Technocracy, there is an entry about the Glassworkers infiltrating the Progenitors without them knowing. And before they could reveal the names of the Progenitors, the Glassworker said, we are going to kill every single one of your agents if you expose us. And what we want from you is a non-aggression pact, and you're going to share your information with us, and we'll share information with you, and you're going to have a beautiful friendship with us. And if the Glassworkers go the route that they look like they're going in 5th edition, where they go and make Spider, of all things, their head totem, I see them just fully stabbing the Sons of Ether and Virtual Apps in the back and getting in bed with the Technocracy. And if they team up with the whole Technocracy, it's game over. But the way they stand now, with having the Sons of Ether and Virtual Adepts, and the Shadow Lords having the Camarilla at their back, I honestly don't know who would come out as the winner in that.
No, that'd be a hell of a battle. That's another apocalypse scenario right there.
It'll be Gehenna, pretty much. You would wipe out the Camarilla in the middle of that fight. Like, even if the Camarilla won, there would be so many losses amongst the Camarilla. I don't think they'd be able to rebuild in time.
They really couldn't. Moving on, again, the Shadow Lords really love what they call simple tribes, and one of them is the Red Talons. Again, wonderful allies, simple-minded and pure. Unrelenting hatred of humanity makes them wonderful collaborators. As we said before, the Shadow Lords were absolutely in favor of the Impergium, so the Red Talons' rabid hatred for humanity made them perfect allies to them. They are very carefully crafted weapons against the forces of the worm, as the book says, and tells them to feign sympathy if you need their help and denounce narrow-mindedness if you need to oppose them. They don't trust anyone who isn't Lupus, and their interpretation of the world is fully inadequate, so the Shadow Lords decide that they're the ones who do all the thinking for the Red Talons, and just send them out to kill, much like the Get-Ephemeris.
And granted, the Shadow Lords have a bit of an easier time talking to Red Talons because there are a good sum of Lupus Shadow Lords out there.
Yes.
It's not... The reason why we didn't go too big into Lupus Shadow Lords is because there's still a good amount of Lupus Shadow Lords out there to the point where they're not treated as this exotic thing anymore. There's still plenty of wolves out there in East Europe and Russia. So there being a Lupus Shadow Lord, that's not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. So if the Red Talons are being fussy and say, we don't want to talk to you, you're Hamid, well, we have a Lupus right here, go get him, Tiger.
Basically, yes.
Or we'll just send a Corax their way.
Whatever works. The Silent Striders, they're cautious about the Silent Striders, and we talked, the Silent Striders don't like them very much. They tell them to keep a close eye on them. The ones who stay with you for a long might be able to be brought under your influence. Those that like to wander a lot are very pernicious. They don't like to stay in one spot. They have a knack for spreading rumors and can tear you down for even the most minor of transgressions. So solicit and they're very, very good at soliciting allies and turning the rivals against you. They said in the book there are 3 questions that you need to ask when you get a Silent Strider to visit your cairn. You need to know who they are, how long they're staying, and what they're there for. They need to know that.
We brought up before in the Silent Striders episode that the perfect way to describe the Silent Striders and Shadow Lords relationship is, I'm the Shadow Lord, this is my gun pointed at your Silent Strider balls.
And this is my Silent Strider gun pointed at your Shadow Lord balls.
And it's mutually assured destruction if any of them make a move.
Exactly.
You have the Camarilla, we have Rites. We have everything we can and all the information we need to expose each other and bring each other down. We know about the masks. You know about the Eaters of the Dead. And, yeah, once again, if these two go to war, they're going to destroy each other.
Yes. There's a lot of infighting, and a lot of it revolves around the Shadow Lord's lust for power.
This is what happens when you're ambitious.
Yes. Well, over-ambitious. There's... maybe we'll get into this. We'll get into that a little bit later. Continuing on, the Silver Fangs. Fuck the Silver Fangs.
Oh, yes.
They're dead to them. Fuck them.
If you go to work every day and you have guys who sound like Joe Biden, John Fetterman, and Mitch McConnell all rolled into one guy, you would see why the Shadow Lords just can't wait for these guys to just die already.
Yeah, they're basically already fucked to them. Their days of leadership are gone. They're all inbred, and they believe ending the Impergium was a mistake. The Shadow Lords just hate humanity. They really don't like people.
And they really hate the Silver Fangs. And, well, these guys are on their way out. As we said before, Silver Fangs don't live to C30. And there's going to be a new leader of the Werewolf Nation sooner than you think. And that's either going to be the Get-Ephemeris or the Shadow Lords.
The Fianna have the chance to do the funniest thing in the universe.
Yeah, you just need to get the Wendigo on your side.
That's not going to fucking happen.
It's not going to happen.
No. But, so, the Stargazers, completely removed from reality, pose no threat to upward advancement. They don't underestimate the call of passion. They rarely seek powder. Just ignore them.
These guys are living in China and they're just waiting for the Kuei-jin to kill them. Their opinions don't matter.
Not a lot of the Uktena. The Uktena have a lot of secrets to them. Much like the Silent Striders, they're also a very secretive tribe. And the Uktena wouldn't try to hide their secrets so carefully if they didn't have good reasons for doing so. And the stirring dissent against them is actually quite easy.
It's pretty interesting, the rivalry between the Uktena and the Shadow Lords. Because what the Uktena ultimately want is gentrification, where they want to create an army of racial minorities amongst any nation that will eventually topple what they see as the quote-unquote Western world and take not just their land back from colonization, but they're also moving into Europe. That whole, like, kind of Islamist, kind of racist idea of the Syrians coming into Europe and changing the culture from being European to being Islamic.
Yeah.
That's what the Uktena unironically want.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fully in support of that. And given that the Shadow Lords are authoritarians by nature, these are two authoritarians that have two very different authoritarian utopias. And they won't mix. The Shadow Lords don't give a shit about racial equality. The Uktena fucking hate white people. And eventually the two are going to tear each other apart because they're seeing skin color instead of fur color.
Yes. Well, fur in general. We're all Garrow. And, maybe the children of Gaia, as weak as they are, do have a point. Yes, the Garrow need to work together in order to defeat the worm, but no, they're caught up in their own ambition. Moving on, once again, calling people simple, the Wendigo. Simple motivations are easier to manipulate. Sympathize when you want to exploit them. Call them out for being narrow-minded when you disagree with them. However, they are incredibly fanatical to the devotion of Mother Gaia, and the Shadow Lords worry that does make them appear weak, but do not underestimate them in the slightest.
They'll go back and forth between saying, "Oh, we sympathize with you. We hated Christopher Columbus just as much as you did," to, "Oh, it sounds like somebody's ancestors weren't very good at war. Oh, poor baby, poor you."
Yes. And now the other creatures that lurk in the world of darkness, the vampires. It is important that the Shadow Lords maintain good relations with the Camarilla. It prevented a lot of bloodshed within their history, as we heard, but it is treasonous to the Garrow Nation. However, it says in the book, if you make contacts with the Camarilla and get caught making contacts, it's your fault for getting caught, not that you made contacts with the Camarilla.
If I can pause you for a second, it's like Daniel J. Diarby in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the card gambler, where he says, if you don't catch me cheating while I'm playing cards, it's your own fault for not catching me cheating, and therefore I still win.
Yes. They also said that, getting caught will just ruin your honor. The Sabbat, however, are a lot less devious than the Camarilla, and the unity of their packs is pretty admirable. However, if they fuck around and find war parties in their territory, they are going to find out.
And by Sabbat, we mean the La Sombra and the Anti-Tribute. They hate the Simichi with a burning passion. They ruin their plans with Dracula. And they will never forgive the Simichi for doing that. But once again, we said a little bit before, towards the end of history, just how incredible it is to have 7 vampire clans you can call upon. In either version, either Legacy or 5th edition, because swapping out the Bruja and Gangrel with the La Sombra and Banu Hakim is actually a better trade.
Yes, it is.
Because
as somebody who played a Gangrel, the Gangrel are fucking useless.
And we talked about just a little bit about how great your relationship with the Tremere could be, but being around a Malkavian and feeding them the drugs they need to have a cohesive vision, like giving them the fentanyl and salvia they need to have a good trip, and then getting a prediction on them. You're doing what the Casticians are doing with the Glasswalkers, but at a much faster rate.
Yes.
Because the Malkavian will just give you that information within a day. You just write it down, you know where the next disaster is going to be. You talk with the Nosferatu, and when they had ShrekNet, they were an incredible ally. They're still a good ally, just spread across the web, and that massive archive of information is lost. But nobody is better at collecting information than Nosferatu. And you want money? A Ventru. The Ventru own all the companies. The Ventru are politicians. They're ruling from the shadows with the Shadow Lords. You can't have a more close but distant relationship, paradoxically, than Shadow Lords and Ventru. They really do respect the Ventru when it comes to relationships.
Yes.
And the Toreador,
They fuck good.
Well, yeah, you could have that. You can have a scene in your game, in your vampire, your werewolf game, where your Toreador says, "I'm gonna get sick my boyfriend on you," and then you try to find out who that is, and then it turns out it's a Shadow Lord.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Granted, the Toreador probably would do that, considering that they tend to be sexually depraved.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And they say that the children of Gaia and Fiona are sluts.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we are, but, you know.
He's just doing it for political gain. He's Machiavellian in nature. And once again, with the Banu Hakim, if you're going with the Banu Hakim as an ally, if you're going for that interpretation of the Camarilla, holy crap, the assassinations you can pull off.
You'd basically just win any political conflict.
And
You could topple the Silver Fangs the next day.
And the La Sombra, it's the same as the Ventru, but the La Sombra tend to be very ambitious, very difficult to control. You want to keep an eye on that La Sombra the entire time. Granted, they are way physically stronger than a Ventru ever will be, but the risk is involved. It's on a much higher scale than we're just keeping things simple with the Ventru.
Yes. Moving on from that, we have the mages. If you ally with a mage, you should be congratulated. You're a hero. They can detect foes that nobody else can. They are brilliant. However, as dangerous as they are, with all the dangerous toys they bring to the table, they are very, very mortal. They are still human beings with flesh and blood. And as brilliant as they are, they're not great in direct combat, but they do make for very powerful allies.
You notice that every other werewolf we've talked about has said, avoid the mages at all costs. No, these guys are saying, pursue the mages. Talk to the mages.
Be friends with them. Learn their weapons.
We talked about Team and Jin before talking with an Akashic.
Yes.
And that is a fantastic relationship. The Akashics make for very good allies, but don't just stop there. Let the Hermetics know that the Demiurge they're talking about is the worm, and see about collaborating with them. Talk with the Verbena and say that the person you've been following this entire time has been Grandfather Thunder. He's known as Zeus, or Perun, or Thor. You just didn't know it was him at the time. We have something in common. You can talk with the Celestial Chorus and say, those little Sombra who are giving you some shit, trying to drag the name of Christianity into the mud for money, let's work together and figure out how to solve this. Or just anything involving the Sons of Aether and Virtual Adepts in fighting Titanocracy. You have so many great things you can accomplish by talking to a mage. It's almost like these two should just be working together already, but for whatever reason they're not.
They're just not.
It's because they can't agree on what a cairn is supposed to be used for.
Yes. And then you have the changelings. Most pose little threat. The Seelie are especially weak, with their ideas of chivalry getting in the way of making noticeable change. The Unseelie are more favorable to the Shadow Lords, but are incredibly reckless.
As we talked about with the Slew on, how their story begins with them trying to kill a child.
Yes.
Yeah, they know that the Unseelie aren't going to be fettered. The Unseelie are horse for money. They're going to do whatever they want, whatever the Shadow Lords want, because of money, or progress, or whatever. They know that the Unseelie, you're going to get what you asked for. And then the Seelie Court, of course, is the pranksters who want to fuck around and stuff, actually do a job.
Yes.
Don't bother talking with them. It's like the reverse Fianna, in a way.
Yeah, pretty much. Do you have any other sections, or am I just doing gifts and rites?
I have gone through braids, auspices, totems, and I'm thinking...
And history.
Yeah, history.
I think you've gotten all yours. I think I just need to do mine too.
I mean, we could bring up... we brought up spirits. We brought up the storm codes and the
mixing
pains.
the splats at the end, and then the Tri-Bane at the end.
Yeah, we'll go beyond vampire and mage.
Yes.
So we only have like a little bit more to talk about. So let's go into... what's on your screen?
Gifts and right?
Gifts.
We'll do gifts first.
Let's do it.
Okay, moseying on over to gifts. Let's see where we're at. So first things first, I'm going to move back up a little bit with my wonderful positioning on the microphone. It's probably going to sound weird.
The mousecaphone?
Yes. So
there it is. It says
first
strike.
Things first, I want to start with a Judges of Doom gift. It's a Camp 4 or Rank 4 Shadow Lord gift, Assassin's Strike. Like the Ratkin and the Naga before them, the Judges of Doom have learned to quickly slip into and out of the Umbra so that they may surprise their prey. When using this gift, the judge disappears for a moment and reappears behind his victim, whereupon he may attack his victim with complete surprise. The gift is tossed by a Cobra Spirit. The character spends one Gnosis and one range, then uses the Umbra to skip up to 50 feet and reappear in the physical world directly behind his target. The judge may then attack the victim at -2 difficulty with a minimum of 4. The attack may not be dodged unless the victim has bolstered his senses with supernatural aid. This is the teleports behind you nothing personnel kid.
And as we've seen with how crazy werewolf damage values can get, that's typically a one-shot, one-kill if you do that.
Yes. That'll tear somebody down in a second.
If you want to piss off your storyteller and kill a boss in the middle of his monologue, just use that.
As somebody who gets really pissed off at, smug monologuing, I highly advocate that gift. Fuck you if you monologue to your players. I don't want to hear it. If you monologue to me, I'm going to pull out a gun and shoot.
unless you have something interesting to say.
Well, no, quite literally. I'm a little off topic. My sister is running Curse of Strahd. And we're very early in the campaign. We've just gotten down to the basement of the kill house, and I've killed a monster in the closet that was supposed to spring out and kill us. And I'm going to drag it into the room where they're doing their rite, slam it down in front of them, and tell them to get the hell out and bury themselves, or I'm doing it for them. The first one that opens their mouth to monologue to me, I am pulling out a gun and shooting them in the head. That is what I'm going to do. I swear to God.
You're playing a cowboy in that game.
Yes, I'm playing as Shogun Marcus.
Yeah.
Okay, next I would like to move on to 1,000 Eyes. This is a Children of Bat. It's a rank 3 Shadow Lord gift. So the Children of Bat melds his consciousness with that of a swarm of bats, and may see and hear all they see and hear for the duration of the night. Using this gift requires a swarm of at least 1,000 bats, which is easily found in most temperate and tropical areas and is taught by the bat spirit. The Garrow finds and spends 3 Gnosis points and rules Perception and Primal Urge with a difficulty 8. Success indicates that they slip into a deep meditative trance and can see through the bat's eyes and hear through their ears for 1 full night. With 1 success, they cannot control the bat's movements. They will go where they will, and they see and hear whatever they happen to see, usually lots of insects. With 3 or more successes, however, the Garrow can subtly direct the movements of the swarm such that they are guided to a general area of interest. They can't control the individual bats, but they will show mild interest in whatever area the Garrow wants them to see. If you're looking for reconnaissance for a very worm-controlled area or weaver-controlled area, and you want to scout out the place before you come up with a plan of attack, this is ludicrously useful for a lot of your recon and pre-fight planning.
Especially if you need to improvise and you don't have a Korax or a spirit for that around the Umbra. In the Umbra, you don't have a Stormcrow you can talk to. Or, well, any other means of reconnaissance. Like, say, it can be a little difficult where you will have Gangrel and Nosferatu with animism, but you can't exactly communicate with that Gould animal all too well. Unless it's a dog where it can kind of understand you.
They can still beckon, but then that might invite more trouble to the vampire than they'd previously think.
So if you need to get something done in that moment, that's good to have on you.
Alright, and this one I picked just because I thought it was really funny. This is a rank 3 Shadow Lord gift called Under the Gun. The Shadow Lord lays a curse on their foe, ensuring certain death by bullets. While the curse is in effect, bullets, as well as arrows, knives, or any other missile weapon, are strangely attracted to the target. Although this gift is useful in battle, most Shadow Lords prefer to use it secretly on a chosen foe before a fight begins, ensuring an unfortunate accident. A Raven Spirit teaches this gift. The Shadow Lord touches the intended target with their fingertips. The player spends a Gnosis point and rolls Manipulation and Firearms. The curse lingers for 1 day per success. While it is in effect, the difficulty to strike the target with any sort of missile attack drops by 2. I think that is absolutely hysterical.
It's funny if you have one guy in your party who's spent in the guns.
Yes.
That this would be a very... It's strange that this is a gift, but it makes for good team synergy.
Yes, like Chico Largo
uses a shotgun.
Is his shotgun a fetish weapon?
No, it's just a straight shotgun.
But even still, it does crazy damage. So, with Storm, who we met last game, happens to have Under the Gun and manages to lay a hand on whoever we need to use, and then Chico Largo rolls to hit, he drops his difficulty by 2. And then it just absolutely will massacre.
And given that's a shotgun where, even though we say that silver bullets are typically what you need against most enemies, a shotgun's just the sheer amount of force behind it is still going to be enough to deal lethal damage to supernatural enemies.
You can still technically silver the buckshot inside of a shell.
Yeah, I think he's using slugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can silver any kind of metal.
Yeah. And now we go into rites.
Okay, so for rites, give me one moment.
We're going to pick the ones that we like the most.
Yeah, so I first picked the Murmur Rite. So this was developed by the Lords of the Summit. This rite is one of the many ways Shadow Lords try to keep their activities a secret. A Lord needs to know the Murmur Rite if they plan on leaving a Shadow Moot, since it is used to open the moot and keep the discussion therein private. Though normally used to mask the conversations of many werewolves, this rite can be performed with as few as 2 Garrow. So each Garrow taking part in the rite contributes 1 Gnosis at the Rite Master's prompting. Once the Gnosis is collected, the conversations of all the rite's participants are masked for the duration of the scene. Any gifts, technology, or supernatural abilities that allow an individual to eavesdrop on private discussions automatically fail. If the eavesdropper botches whatever role they were using to try to listen in, they gain some piece of misinformation that serves to mask further the activities of the rite's participants. Given how devoted the Shadow Lords are to their personal advancement and doing whatever they need to do in order to get there, this is lethally important to them.
It's the cone of silence, and something the Shadow Lords will do is that they'll have moots where they will only accept other Shadow Lords to come into the moots. And these sound like your little Davos billionaire summits.
This is like a Bilderberg meeting in werewolf form.
Yep, you get to have all these where we're talking about exactly how they're going to funnel more power and money into Russia, or cause dissent within another country for the sake of their own political gain.
Yes. Moving on to a level 3, Calling the Storm. This is a punishment rite. So, the description, given the rigors of the Shadow Lord society and emphasis on goals, it is inevitable that some become corrupt and put their own selfish desires over the good of the tribe. This rite was developed to counter fallen lords with Shadow Lord justice. When a leader within the tribe has fallen to the worm, the Garrow ruled by him may use an outside agent to announce his transgressions to the tribe at large. If the accusations are true, the Garrow may enact this rite. Storm clouds gather above the mood, and the Garrow invoking the rite gain the strength they need to destroy the one who has turned his back on Gaia. The system. If the charges leveled against the corrupt Garrow are true, the storm that gathers above the moot empowers those who conspire against him. They gain 2 points. They gain 2 points of rage.
That's a typo.
And if they are Shadow Lords, they also gain a point of Gnosis. In addition, Primal Urge rolls are made at a difficulty 2 lower than normal. If the charges are untrue, however, the Gathering Storm punishes the offenders, striking them with lightning that deals 5 levels of aggravated damage. That immediately puts you at crippled and at a -5 to all your rolls.
It's a very dangerous shock to take.
You need to know for certain that the Shadow Lord is fucking around with people he shouldn't. So if you uncover that if a Shadow Lord uncovers that another one is working with the Camarilla, which is in their book, but still, if you really wanted to shoot down a political opponent, this is the rite that you need in order to do so.
Mm-hmm. You could also do this in another way where you can say you have a NPC who is accused of being worm tainted. You can have a Shadow Lord try to enact the calling of the storm and then intentionally get himself shocked with the lightning as a means of proving he's innocent.
Yes,
Yep.
That's true as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on from that. This one I thought was relatively interesting.
This one's crazy.
This one is pretty long. This is the Rite of Conquest. This is a renowned rite. So, more celebratory than it might seem for the name, the Rite of Conquest is performed to welcome back a bringer of light who has successfully endured an extended stay in the presence of the worm and emerged unscathed, both physically and spiritually. It is similar in many respects to the Rite of Cleansing, but it is far more powerful. Recipients of this rite are true paragons among the Garrow, and even Garrow of other tribes bow down before them in respect, as they have accomplished things few others would even dare to attempt. This rite may only be performed by one who has himself received the rite, and it is only performed under a sky filled with storm clouds under Grandfather Thunder's watchful gaze. So, to receive this rite, a Shadow Lord, usually a bringer of light, needs to endure the horrors of the worm for a period of no less than 6 months. He must interact with Fomori, Banes, or corrupted Garrow during this period, and he must successfully resist their influence without falling to the worm, or even being tainted by its presence. If the Garrow survives such an ordeal, they may receive this rite and be recognized as one of the strongest of Gaia's warriors. He has conquered the worm. The Garrow performing this rite, who must be a theurge, expends a number of Gnosis points equal to the recipient's Garrow rank. The recipient pours forth all of his Gnosis points, giving them up to the storms above him. Once this is done, the Rite Master makes a Charisma and Rituals roll with a difficulty of 10 minus the Garrow's rank, and draws the power of Gaia into the recipient's body. On receiving the rite, the recipient gains one of several possible benefits of the player's choice, and they are as follows. First, the recipient becomes highly resistant to the Thrall of the Worm. They must roll 8 or more successes on a rage roll to enter a frenzy, and 10 or more successes to enter the Thrall of the Worm. Further, the character may spend willpower point to half the frenzy normally, even if you would normally fall into the Thrall of the Worm. Otherwise, Lightbringer becomes highly resistant to worm toxins. They receive no penalty from supernatural radiation, balefire, worm elementals, and the like, although still does suffer from damage. He is likewise immune to Bane possession. Otherwise, the character is immune to Hirano. Or lastly, the character's sanity is absolute. He becomes immune to any and all circumstances that might inflict him with temporary or permanent insanity, and will maintain his sanity even if forced to dance the Black Spiral, although he is not protected from any other aspect of this gruesome trial.
You will still get manipulated by the Banes and become deformed, but you won't get a worm power out of that will cause you to become corrupted. So, and also, behold, you are now immune to the one thing that Malkavians have over you. And that is a fantastic reward to have if you pull it off. Granted, that's probably going to happen at the end of a game, but give this to an NPC and say, it's kind of like your Gotos or your Athoses of Fire Emblem, where that's a party member who appears at the ass end of the game, and he's there for one more fight. So a character who has all of those penalties, that would be a fantastic ally to have for a big fight.
Yes, if you happen across a high rank Shadow Lord Garrow who has gone through the Rite of Conquest and returned successfully, then he is going to be your endgame NPC. If you are going to fight something that needs killed or the world will end and Gehenna happens, you need somebody who has gone through the Rite of Conquest. This is the most powerful rite within the Shadow Lord's tribe.
Granted, they don't put any material components in there, so I'm imagining this would also be crazy expensive to use.
Well, it says that it's how many Gnosis points? Gnosis points equal to the recipient of the Garrow's rank.
Yeah.
So if you get like a rank 3, and then you need to spend 3 Gnosis points.
Yeah.
And then you also need to roll a difficulty 10 minus the Garrow's rank, Charisma and Rituals. Yeah. So there is a lot that needs to go right.
And there's one thing I was looking at. Scroll down.
Yes.
Ride of the Hurricane.
Ride of the Hurricane.
Let's just have it on screen for a minute.
Okay.
This rite may only perform during a tropical storm, and even then only in storm season. If these conditions are met, a single day is enough to call up upon a storm cell in the general region, manifesting hurricane force winds for a single scene if easily done. But maintaining the storm is another matter. Doing so requires the expenditure of 3 points of Gnosis per day. And behold, you can just clear an entire chronicle by summoning a hurricane onto a region.
That's kind of fucking stupid.
Would you like to solve this vampire infestation? We'll just cause Hurricane Katrina to happen in this region.
Hey, look, you don't have any houses anymore. I wonder what happened. Good luck with your havens, by the way.
You can no longer stay in a place with a roof to avoid sunlight. All of your underground cairns are flooded, and the vampire situation has solved itself. We can go home.
Magic. Absolute magic. That's why it's a mystic rite. That is hysterical. Holy shit.
And lastly, mixing splats.
Yes, splats.
We have taught a ton about vampires and mages. And the Unseelie, well, that can just explain itself. The Shadow Court of Fae, I don't see them ever working with, considering that those are nihilists who just want to die.
Yes.
Let's talk about Hunter for a change.
Yeah, what about Hunter?
So these guys, in the story of Dracula, Van Helsing is sent after him.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, expand a little bit more about that. Say you have a vampire who is anti-tribute or an anarch, just any member of the anarchs, or a Setite. Mm-hmm. And you need him to die, but he's aware of Geru and he knows how to get around you already. He's got Black Spiral Dancers working with him already. We need somebody a little bit more expendable. Get a hunter on it. Call up the Church of St. Leopold. Send a anonymous tip to the IAA. Get the Arcanum to help out with this, or some of the more obscure guys like the Youngbloods, the hunters who willingly ghoul themselves off vampire blood to get disciplines,
Yes.
and send them out and get them to do the job for you. And no Shadow Lord needs to die, and if the thing goes wrong, we weren't involved.
Exactly. So perfect CIA bullshit that the Shadow Lords would pull in order to preserve their own honor.
You can do a Hunter the Reckoning Chronicle, and it turns out the guy who hired you was a Shadow Lord the entire time.
Exactly.
And in any instance where you encounter something in your werewolf game, if you are playing a Shadow Lord, this is a call to action. If you encounter a vampire, mage, or unseelie fae, make friends with it. Get that thing as your ally. Do everything you can. Like, go up to that vampire, thrall them by the throat, and say, I'm going to kill you right here and now. If you eat a... But I could be merciful, and we can make a deal instead. And make sure that vampire is terrified of you and that you control the conversation, that you are the dominant one in that deal. And that deal will pay off. It'll be probably the best decision you ever make in your game, or the worst decision you make in your game.
Yes.
But go with the big risk when you do your games, because...
That makes them far more interesting when you do. It might be stressful, but it'll definitely be more interesting.
And if it's a Ventru you choose, you can't lose. Anytime you get a deal with the Ventru, always make the deal with the Ventru. As we saw with Vampire the Masquerade Bloodline, Sebastian LaCroix wasn't that dangerous.
No.
And thinking about one more, maybe Wraiths?
I'm not sure what a Wraith would want with a Shadow Lord.
It'll be more that the Wraith is your antagonist. Because say the Silent Strutters are trying to get dirt on you, and you start looking around your cairn and you start noticing that you're being haunted.
Yes.
And then you gotta not only find the ghost, but prove that it was the Silent Strutter who sent the ghost to you. And how that could be a small portion of your chronicle, where you gotta bust the ghost in your cairn.
Bustin' makes me feel good.
Yeah. And Demon of Fallen, Well, let's talk a little bit more about the Bali. Because as we said before about the Bali, Huitzilopochtli was actually a good guy, even though he was a Bali.
Yes.
Let's see where you can go with that. Say, the Shadow Lords do love talking to Bali, and even though majority of Bali are dead, if one surfaces, every vampire will drop what they're doing and immediately try to kill that Bali. Find that Bali, bring them into the cairn. You might want to stick them to a cross, and like hands apart, feet together, and say, tell us about what demons you've contacted, and tell us what they're asking you to give us, and we will see about trying to get them off our backs as well. Mm-hmm. Because if it's threatening the planet, it's our responsibility too. And start actively working with the Bali in preventing end of the world by demon. Because, well, forget about the apocalypse of the worm. The worm is taking its time. The demons are here now.
Yes, they are.
You gotta get this shit solved today.
Yes, they become the more pressing matter in that scenario.
Because if you have a story that involves Bali, your game will very quickly become a cosmic horror story.
Yes.
Because you start reading what Daemonian does in 9th and 10th level, and the minute you cast that, the world ends. Just chronicle over. Like, no, let's World of Darkness as a whole is over. You need to start all over again.
Which is that?
Daemonian summons a being from outer space, a demon from outer space.
So he literally just calls upon Cthulhu, and then you're fucked.
You wish it was Cthulhu. It's bigger than that.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, you look at the moon after he cast that discipline, and then the moon turns around and you see the dark side of the moon, and it's actually an alien the entire time. And then it flies down and starts devouring humanity, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of horror you can get with the Bali. And that's it for the Shadow Lords.
Well, we do need to discuss the Clan Bane, which by this point is pretty fucking obvious.
Yeah, if you fuck up once with the Shadow Lord, that's a massive honor renown loss. You lose twice the honor renown that you would have otherwise. That goes for glory and wisdom too.
So if you're looking to play a high intensity political thriller within the Garo Nation, you're going to need a Shadow Lord.
And we would look at stuff like House of Cards and Oppenheimer as inspiration, or like Breaking Bad. I remember Oh, I don't remember the guy's name, but he brought up Gus Fring from Breaking Bad as a perfect idea of what a Shadow Lord is. I don't see them being drug kingpins, but the way that Gianluca played that character, that was fantastic. That is fantastic because having that switch flip between calm and approachable restaurant manager to threatening drug kingpin.
Yep.
Like that is perfect for your werewolf.
And that's the thing, is that like a lot of the Shadow Lord's legacy in history has to do with their intense ambition and drive when it comes to attaining a true leadership position within the Colonization. However, they have let that blind them nearly entirely from the true matter at hand, which is the safety of Mother Gaia itself. And that will eventually lead to their downfall when they're so tied up in their own political gain, their own ambition. They get greedy and then forget that Mother Gaia is constantly under assault from the worm.
And that's the way it ends in Times of Judgment if you want it to be caused by the Shadow Lords, because the Shadow Lords get so sick of waiting for power and they realize they're never going to get it. They say, we would rather have no world than a world that we do not rule, and they side with the worm.
Yep, and then you have more Black Spiral dancers.
Because they don't kill the Black Spirals. You have tribes that fall that kill Black Spirals. No, they don't do it. They immediately get in bed with the Black Spirals.
They dance it, and then it's done.
Yeah. And, yeah, if you want to play a horrible person, now you know how.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not good people, but you're not a bad guy. You are a bad guy, but you're not a bad guy.
Yes.
The Wreck-It Ralph quote in reverse.
Basically, yes. Strike that, reverse it. You are a bad person, but you're not on the bad team.
Yeah. And we want to see just how bad you are going to be in future games. Take everything we said to heart, be evil.
Are you a bad enough dude to save Mother Gaia? Only the Shadow Lords can tell.
Yes. You fucker, that's a good way to end the episode.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.